What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for March 28th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a feel-good Friday edition of the podcast. It's also Fridays with AI, so stay tuned for that. But first, let's get into some quick housekeeping. Follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, at PhillyJimbo. Continue to spread the word as we grow this thing. I talked to you yesterday about Jill Cranley's neighbor reaching out to me, which was pretty cool. Like I said, lots of good things going on. So continue to spread the word. I truly, truly appreciate it. Big things on the horizon here at this day in Philly sports history. And then be sure to check out Lenny Wagner. He's the author of Playing with the Best, One Man's Journey Through the Golden Era of Sports, the story of Walter French. Starting April 1st, we will begin to dive into Walter's life as an NFL player as well as a Major League Baseball player. That's April 1st through the 6th. And if you want to catch Lenny giving a presentation on Walter for more detail, he will be at the Mount Laurel Historical Society on April 8th at 7. All of that information is in the description. But Walter French his story is just incredible. So be sure to check out Lenny, buy the book. And I keep saying this, and if you are a big history buff, this is more than just the story of Walter French. It talks about the history of sports. There's a lot of different rules and the way things were played back then, as well as what was going on in the country. So I highly recommend the book. Go check it out. And I usually don't read that much. So the fact that I've read the book and I'm recommending it, you know it has to be good. So all the information you need for Lenny's book is in the description. All right, yesterday, opening day. Phillies with a dramatic 7-3 win over the Nats in 10 innings. Kind of the tale of two games. 19 strikeouts. Phillies struck out 19 times, but Schwarber and Harper both hit bombs. Alec Boehm with the big 2-run double in the 10th. But I guess a lot of the talk was about the shadows. And I don't know. I mean, both teams early on struck out a lot. I think there were 12 between the two teams in the first 4 innings. So maybe there's something to that. Either way, though, they got it done. I have a feeling this may be kind of the story of the season. Lots of good things to take away. They did walk 6 times, and I don't have any official stats, but even with the 19 strikeouts, it did appear, at least later in the game, that they were seeing more pitches, maybe not getting the hits and still striking out the way we want it, but they were seeing more pitches, so maybe they've turned the corner. Trey Turner seemed like he saw a lot more pitches than what we're used to seeing him in the 2 spot. Now, tomorrow, when they switch the lineup up, we'll see. Hopefully they can keep that going. Jose Alvarado was just nasty, absolutely nasty. Orion Corcoran was kind of nasty too with some of his pitches, which is a good thing for that bullpen. Jordan Romano, not so much. I don't know. I mean, we'll see what happens. I know a lot of people are high on him, but not a good start to the season for him. Zach Wheeler was just Zach Wheeler. It's going to be a long season, though. Can't really overreact one way or the other here to the first game of the season. But 1-0 certainly is a lot better than 0-1. I do think the defense, depending on who you look at, like that one play where between Stott and Turner and Kepler, it was just a weird scenario, weird kind of sequence of events. And then the other one, that was just a hell of a hit. We were talking about it. My wife's like, that's another error. And I'm like, no, it's not an error because the guy just hit it in a perfect spot. However, if you're an old school guy like me, you know as well as I do, Jimmy Rollins would have caught that. But either way, 1-0. No way to get all the way up and like be super. No way to feel down about this team. It's just one game. And now we have to wait another day for game 2. Bryce and Stott actually, sorry, I just almost knocked my microphone off the table. Bryce and Stott played some good defense, and I got to kind of wonder, he makes those plays look dramatic, but I wonder if he needs to. But either way, I don't know. Good takeaway. We'll take it away from the game, though. Good takeaway. 1-0. Jesus Luzardo on the mound tomorrow. Hopefully, the Shadows won't be an impact. But again, it's always better to start off 1-0 than 0-1. All right, before the game, I asked you, what was your season win total prediction for the Phillies? And 63% say 90 or more. And I think that it's going to be right there on that number, within one or two. I think you saw what they did. I mean, the pitching is going to be fine. It's just going to me, come down to the consistency of the hitting. And guys are going to go in slumps. We just can't have them all going into slumps at the same time. So thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. There will be another one later in the show.
It's time for Fridays with AI, where we ask AI to rewrite Philly sports history. Every Friday only on This Day in Philly Sports History.
That's right. It's Fridays with AI, the new segment we've been doing throughout the month of March. Have been having a lot of fun with this. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, but I had some extensive conversations with AI this week and decided Bryce Harper is the face of the Phillies right now. And could be argued, I think Jalen Hurts may have taken over, or even Saquon Barkley, but one of the top three faces of Philly sports right now. But years ago, I think he's going into year 7. That's hard to believe. Or is it year 6? Either way, 2019. So, yeah, 6th year. Really, it's hard to believe it's been that long. But we almost didn't get Bryce. If you remember, the reality of the situation is Bryce was trying to figure out what he wanted to do. Phillies were in, Phillies were out. Kind of had resigned ourselves to the fact that we weren't going to get him, and then the news kind of broke. Signed that 13-year, $330 million contract. But what if Bryce did not choose the Phillies? And that's what I asked AI this week, to create an alternate reality for the Phillies if they did not sign Bryce Harper. And I know it's hard to imagine Bryce Harper not on this team, but it wasn't a foregone conclusion that he was going to sign. So I think the biggest news was ultimately Bryce decided to stay in Washington and sign with the Nationals, became the face of that franchise. Obviously, that's going to alter some of the guys that the Phillies brought in who were teammates of Bryce and guys that he wanted. So Bryce signs with the Nationals, and this could have been detrimental to the Phillies. They missed out, sort of going back to the days of being a small market team. There were questions. They did sign that big TV contract. I think that probably would have gotten signed either way, though. But to their credit, according to AI, the Phillies used it as a way to sort of focus on their farm system, revamp their line of thinking and how they approach the game. They wanted to refocus more on long-term growth of their own players and sustain success, kind of like they did similar to like what they did with Ed Wade and then Pat Gillick, where you had your homegrown guys and then you brought in some guys. JT was sort of the focal point of the team. They wanted to build a team around JT. JT actually becomes a bigger star in this reality, perennial MVP in the conversation for that, as well as just, I mean, we know what he does with the pitching staff, becomes sort of the line of succession after Chooch. Guys like Mickey Moniak, Rhys Hoskins, Bryson Stott, and Scott Kingery continue to develop. They run out a pretty young team and let those guys sort of learn on the job together. They become a fun and exciting team. The fans really gravitate toward those guys because they're homegrown guys, and you got JT as your quote-unquote star, and then guys like Rhys Hoskins, Kingery, Mickey Moniak, and Bryson Stott sort of built around him. Over the course, though, they do sign some of those key veterans to help their development. They do bring in Zach Wheeler. Like I said, kind of a 2008, like the 07 to 2011 era-esque rebuilding and model to making this team go. The key to this, though, and the turning point for the Phillies in this alternate reality is when Theo Epstein steps down from the Cubs. The Phillies swoop in. John Middleton says, we need this guy is the guy that's going to put us over the top. So in 2021, Epstein makes some shrewd moves, and it leads to a division title. And combines, basically, he takes what he learned in Boston and Chicago, combines it, and is able to be a super GM here in Philly. Still trades for Schwarber, who helps lead the Phillies to that division title. In 2022, all of the pieces seem to come together. They make it to the World Series again, but still lose to the Astros, this time in 7 games instead of 6. But the stage was set. They had the key trade pieces, and going into that 2023 offseason, things were looking up for the Phillies. And, of course, in 2023, they broke through. They win the World Series in dramatic fashion, walk off in the bottom of the 9th, Game 7 against the Rangers. And really what it does is it proves to sort of changes the whole complex of Major League Baseball, where they're like, all right, we don't have to go out and sign these big stars. You can build your team with a good farm system and then making key free agent moves and trades, kind of the old-fashioned way, but it's truly a team effort. They embrace, as we love in Philly, that underdog mentality. They don't have the big names. They don't have the big stars, but they play well together as a team. And we do go more toward that analytical approach. But this is AI's alternate reality. So in AI's alternate reality, without Bryce Harper, the Phillies win the World Series in 2023, building from within. Guys like Moniak, Stott, Rhys Hoskins become the focal point of the team, and JT tends to be the star. So I think of all of the AIs we've done so far, this might be the most believable, actually, because Theo Epstein ended up working for Major League Baseball, but there was a good shot that if we didn't have Dombrowski, that the Phillies may have made a run with him, so John Middleton could get his effing trophy back. So that is Fridays with AI, the I will get this right, alternate reality without Bryce Harper. Phillies do win a World Series. So that does lead to today's question of the day. And if he wins a World Series, this question is a moot point. But is Bryce Harper a good signing if the Phillies don't win a World Series? It kind of makes you think. 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that. Anything else Philly sports related off of your chest. But is Bryce Harper a good signing for the Phillies if they don't win a World Series in his 13 years here? And that's a tough one. Really tough. All because AI says without Bryce Harper, the Phillies would have won the World Series. At least they didn't say Carson Wentz would be a Hall of Famer. All right, let me know your thoughts on that. Hey, you want to vent about the game too? That is all fair game. We do have some Eagles news, and they're moving on from the Eagles pep band after 28 years because they want a, quote, different game day experience. And I don't know how I feel about this because, to be honest, I don't really remember recently seeing the Eagles pep band on the field. I know for years we used to see them in the parking lot. My buddy at his wedding, the Eagles pep band showed up, which was a pretty cool moment. But the Eagles pep band, actually, they're a huge part of Eagles history because they're the guys that redid and remade the fight song and really created the lyrics for Fly, Eagles, Fly. It's been a good 28-year run. It's still the original crew, but again, not sure how I feel about that, but there will be no more Eagles pep band. They're still, staying together and will be available for charity events and things like that. But a new era, I guess, of game day entertainment for the Eagles. No more Eagles pep band. All right, Flyers made a lot of news yesterday. First of all, yesterday morning, they fired John Tortorella. I feel good riddance. I feel like this was coming. I feel like after his comments after the loss where he's like, I'm not ready to coach, or I don't know I don't want to learn how to coach a team like this. I think they made the right move. Get him out of there. I don't think he's the guy you want for a rebuild. We'll see what that brings in the offseason, but the fact that Danny Briere did mention the word rebuild a couple times in the statement, I think was kind of comforting, because a lot of times you don't hear GMs acknowledge that they're rebuilding. And to hear him say, we're moving on from the coach because we're in the rebuild, whatever the statement was, I think it's a good thing. And how did the Flyers respond? Well, in true dead cat bounce form, they beat the Canadiens 6-4. They came out inspired, scoring 3 goals in the first period. Matvei Michkov and Sean Couturier each had 2 goals and an assist. Michkov was close to a hat trick a couple different times. That's the Flyers we expected to see most of this season. Whether or not Tortorella was holding Michkov back, I don't know. But new coach, dead cat bounce. Flyers responded well. Hopefully they don't screw up their draft position too much. They're still hanging on to that 5th spot with 8 games left. Sixers are off until tomorrow, but it's a big night in the NBA for the Sixers as both the Nets and the Raptors are in action. Sixers are tied with the Nets. They're 3 games up on the Raptors. We want them to stay in that 6th spot to have a shot to keep that pick. But they'll know going into tomorrow's game whether they need to really tank or just normal tank. Be sure to check out my boys at the Clashing Conferences podcast. Great things happening with their sports fan network. Go to clashingconferences.com for information on how you can get involved with the Clashing Conferences. Their podcasts are available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then go to Philly Goat. The shirt came. You got to love it. This is the one I got, the Philly Frenetic from Double Bogey Down. If you can see, there's Fanatics on there, the 215, an Eagle. They got the Ill. Comfortable material, definitely good for golf, especially if you're going to golf when it's hot. But go get your own Double Bogey Down golf shirt from phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Pick up some hats, some shoes, and some tees while you're there. Everything is 10% off. If you tell Ryan you listen to This Day in Philly Sports History and use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take that 10% off. All right, kind of a little off the beaten path today. Not so much Philly-based today, but it was a big day in South Philly, specifically at the Spectrum and the Wells Fargo Center. First, we're going to go back to 1992. And on this day in 1992, it was simply known as the Shot. Duke took on Kentucky in the Elite Eight. Duke was the 1 seed. Kentucky was the 2 seed. And it was a classic, arguably the greatest NCAA tournament game of all time. It was Duke beating Kentucky 104-103 when Christian Laettner hit the buzzer beater. I'm sure you know it well. Long baseball pass, Grant Hill threw it from one baseline to the foul line. Laettner took it, hit the shot with 2.1 seconds left, dribbled right, went back to his left, hit the shot, swish, buzzer sounded. And it's still a couple questions to this day for Rick Pitino. One, why did you not put somebody in Grant Hill's face? Like, he had all day and could really just, I mean, it's hard enough to throw a basketball that length of the court. But with nobody guarding him, I just don't understand it. I never will. Some of my lasting memories from that was Thomas Hill crying. Like, we've all seen the picture. And if you're watching on my social media, I put the clip of that up. I didn't put the sound in, but the old school Spectrum buzzer, love that there. And then I do remember my experience. I had to listen in my mom's Ford Tempo because my brother was at a birthday party he is a Kentucky fan, and wouldn't come out of the party until the game was over. Still bitter about that today, Mom, and Kyle for that matter. But it does pain me to talk about Duke being successful on this podcast. However, it was a big part of Philly sports history because the shot when Christian Laettner beat Kentucky in overtime to go to the Final Four happened on this day at the Spectrum. And then even more off the beaten path, Fast forward 7 years, the first Union Center was open, and it was WrestleMania 15. WrestleMania 15, first time WrestleMania was in Philadelphia. You might remember back in 2024, it was at the Link. But some highlights from that card. Hardcore Holly won the Hardcore Championship in a triple threat match. Butterbean knocked out Bart Gunn. Mankind beat the Big Show to become the referee in the main event. Road Dogg defended his Intercontinental Championship. The Undertaker beat the Big Boss Man in Hell in a Cell. And then, of course, the main event, Stone Cold Steve Austin beat The Rock to win the WWF Championship with Mankind as the special guest referee. So WrestleMania 15 at the FU Center back in 1999. Back in 1992, Christian Laettner hit the shot at the Spectrum. So not really Philly related today, but a big day in the South Philly Sports Complex. March 28th, 1992 and 1999. And then finally today, our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame Spotlight is on Stephanie Vanderslice Gaitley from Villanova. She played there from 1979 to 1983. She was inducted into the Big Five Hall of Fame in 1991. She's an Ocean City, New Jersey native. And again, you know how I feel about this. She was an academic All-American her senior year. That senior year, she helped lead Villanova to the AIAW Eastern Championship and to the Final Four of that tournament. The Wildcats went 29-4, took third in the tournament. They beat the heavily favored Rutgers to win the Eastern Championship, but then Rutgers would get their revenge in the tournament. Rutgers was a perennial top 10 team back then. She was inducted into the Villanova Hall of Fame in 1993, but really made her name after graduation as a coach. She's been to 10 NCAA tournaments, including 5 while coaching the St. Joe's women. She's coached at Richmond, St. Joe's, LIU, Monmouth, Fordham, and she is now the head coach at Fairleigh Dickinson. 727 wins all time. The 12th winningest active coach from women's college basketball. She's won 2 A-10 titles while she was at St. Joe's. She also coached for a season at her alma mater in Ocean City, coaching at Ocean City High School. But Stephanie Gaitley, you are today's Women's Big Five Hall of Fame Spotlight. Great player, probably a better coach, and one of the best to ever do it. Coming out of Ocean City, New Jersey, Stephanie Vanderslice Gaitley. Today, we spotlight you as our Women's Big Five Hall of Fame Spotlight. Back on this day, it was a big day in South Philly sports complex history. WrestleMania 15 took place in 1999, and then The Shot, one of the greatest games ever in the NCAA tournament, took place at the Spectrum in 1992. Be sure to pick up your golf shirt from Double Bogey Down and Philly Goat. Go right to Philly Goat, look for their collections, hit Double Bogey Down, and you can choose from one of the 3 selections. Be sure to use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. We'll have more on the Sixers and Flyers tomorrow. Let me know if you have any feelings one way or the other, though, too, on the Eagles pep band. Phil's off. They are back in action tomorrow, but we started off 1-0. We spent Fridays with AI. We went down the alternate reality without Bryce Harper. Phillies actually won a World Series. So this is where AI is starting to get a little controversial on us here in Fridays with AI. But look, is Bryce Harper a good signing if the Phillies don't win a World Series? We're about halfway through that contract now. I don't know. It's going to be tough. And I like Bryce a lot. But it kind of makes you wonder if the Phillies don't win a World Series, was it a good signing? Let me know your thoughts on social media or the Back to the Future voice and text line. Big show, but it feels good to be 1-0, even though it wasn't the prettiest of games. But something tells me that's going to be the way this season goes for the Phils. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for March 28th, 2025. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Friday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.